Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. I want to see if I can help you understand the best way to truly know if an individual is able to connect with you in a reasonable and fulfilling kind of way. And what we have to do is learn how to understand the different parts or aspects of an individual as they engage with you and the rest of the world. Now, let me see if I can give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Each one of us has what we refer to as our true self. And when we talk about the true self, it's actually just the sum total of all of an individual's mixture of many ingredients, pluses, minuses, and experiences, etc. Your true self is everything that there is to be known about who you are. A second element that is part of each person is what we might refer to as the shadow self. And when we talk about the shadow self, that's part of the dark side of a personality that is not flattering, or can be very painful, or it can be something that's been done to you, like a history of abuse. But the shadow self can be the part of you that you don't want to look at, and you don't even want to acknowledge. Sometimes it operates on a subconscious level. By the way, healthy individuals are willing to go into that space for a sense of awareness and self-understanding. A third aspect of who we are is the false self. Now, the false self comes along when a person's true self and shadow self don't mix up very well, and they wind up having so much shame and so much need for presenting themselves in what they consider to be the desirable kind of way that it's just their public persona that doesn't really match up well with the sum total of what they are. They're very selective about what they're going to show you. And then we have what we would refer to as your separate self. And the separate self is all of the things about you that make you unique and distinct, and perhaps a bit different from that person right next to you. And this can be positive or negative. And skills, for example, some people can play musical instruments, or some part of their separate self. They visited all 50 states in the United States, or things like that. And so we have the true self, the shadow self, the false self, and the separate self. Now, narcissists are so afraid of their true self, they will not come in contact at all with their shadow self. They're deeply committed to their false self. So when they try to portray themselves as separate, and when I say separate, distinct and unique, there's a great deal of psychopathology that goes along with that, and their idea of being separate and distinct then tends to be very unhealthy. Let's keep in mind that there are two primary ingredients that feed into this with the narcissist. That's part of what they are. The first, narcissists carry a great deal of entitlement. In their mind, it's like, well, I'm supposed to be given preferential and deferential treatment. And so as they present themselves as separate or distinct or unique, it's with this attitude of superiority. It's like, yeah, I'm separate from you, and boy, am I glad, because they've got this attitude of selfishness and superiority that drives them. And so their entitlement latches onto the separate self, and it turns it into something that's egregious. And then in addition, narcissists also are defined by a lack of empathy. And so as they engage with other individuals, they're thinking, why would I need to even bother knowing who you are and trying to understand you from your vantage point? And so with their attitude of entitlement, with their lack of empathy, when they set themselves up as being separate or distinct or unique, like I say, there's a great deal of psychopathology that goes along with it. And there's one major distinction about all of humanity that they just tend to overlook or forget, and that is every one of us is interconnected in some form or another. We're hardwired from day one, or I can even say minute one in our lives, to connect well with other individuals. A healthy life is one that's lived in a sense of community. And so when we have our sense of separateness and distinction, we don't detract from it when we say, but I'm also connected with other individuals. We realize it's not an either or, but it's a both and. And I want you to just think about how this strong need for interconnectedness just shows up in so many different ways. For example, why do people like to do social gatherings? It's because they want to be interconnected. Why do we want to feel loved and accepted and feel like we have a place where we can belong? It goes back to that sense of interconnectedness. Why do we appreciate acts of kindness or goodness, particularly when they're done in our direction? Well, again, it makes us realize, okay, I'm connected with other individuals. The same can be said. Why does it bother us when people are rude to you or me, or when they just are tuned out? It's like, well, I have a lack of connectedness and I don't like that. Or why do we speak with insistence or persuasion? Even that, it's like, no, I need to get you over here to think with me. Connectedness is part of that. Or why do we become tense or insecure or anxious or angry or depressed? And typically it's because our connections are not being what we want them to be. Why do we enjoy things like sports? I mean, actually, it's a form of bonding. When we are cheering for someone or when we're participating as a team, why do we enjoy art and music? It makes us feel like we're connected to something bigger than us. Why do we enjoy service projects? So we get a great deal of satisfaction there. All of this illustrates that deep down on the inside, we want to be connected. But like I say, when narcissists operate with their separate self, they completely ignore the interconnected part. And as a result, when they want to be separate and they want to have their own separate self, it all has to be on their terms. They have no sense of mutuality. And so as a result, to a narcissist, when they engage with you and they bring their separate self, their distinctives, and their uniqueness to you, it's all transactional. In healthy relationships, we can bring our distinctives to one another in such a way where we can encourage each other, we can build one another up, we can learn from one another, and we can be glad that we each have something that's unique that we bring to the equation. With the narcissist, though, their sense of separateness causes them to have their own unique patterns that are not very healthy for relationships. For example, in their separateness, it's like, you're not going to know me at a heart level. I don't do that. I'm too distinct for something like that. Likewise, when they approach the word love, to them it just means you need to adore me. And they have this sense of separateness that says, well, I deserve that. I'm really unique. Or to them, honesty is only in a selective kind of way. You'll know me on a need-to-know kind of basis. There's no sense of mutuality with respect to that. And as a result, they're major keepers of secrets, because it's like, I don't like connecting with people where I have to be vulnerable and reveal the true me, the full me, and I sure am not going to get into that shadow self, that's for sure. Once they have used up a person and that person is no longer utile to them, it's like they can easily discard each other individuals. Harmonizing in their mind is for you, but it's not for them. Loyalty, the same thing. It's a one-way street. Their loyalty, such as it is shallow and fleeting. In a narcissist way of thinking, they hold themselves up as separate and distinct, which means you're supposed to give me supply, you're supposed to serve me, but it's not going to be reciprocated. So like I say, it's good for us to have a separate self as long as we understand our communal position with other individuals. And you'll notice along with that, there are certain words or concepts that narcissists have a great deal of difficulty with. And words or concepts like unity or collaboration or blending with others. Another concept, having a sense of anticipation about the other person's needs and then acting upon that. Conscientiousness, being agreeable with other individuals, having a sense of openness, working toward reconciliation, accepting the complexities that each individual brings to a relationship. They can't think about those kind of concepts at all because in their separate self, it's like, no, it's just way too much about me. All of those things mean I have to give up a certain amount of myself, and they don't understand that sometimes when you invest in other individuals, it enhances everybody, including themselves and others. It's like, no, they don't think that way. Instead, they're easily angered. They're pathologically defensive. They're not team players. They're predictably unpredictable. So in a healthy sense, it's good to have a separate self. And it's good to manage your separate self inside the context of community. The narcissist, they'll say out loud, I'm too good for that. I'm too superior for that, and I don't play the unity game or the harmony game. I don't like doing something like that. That diminishes me. Now, my translation, when I notice that a narcissist is doing that, it's basically they're saying, I'm ashamed of my true self. I absolutely will not acknowledge my shadow self. I'm deeply committed to my false self, and therefore my separate self means I'm not going to connect. Because those other issues are way too, I'm way too conflicted regarding those. And so my separate self means I'm going to pull myself away from you, and then you can see all the rest that goes with it. So I'm hoping this gives you a good idea of what you might be dealing with, and I'm hoping that as you examine how they struggle with these various elements of themselves, that you can decide, I want to be somebody that has consistency with that, and I want to have a sense of honesty about who I am, and in doing so, it makes you somebody who's much more inclined towards steadiness and having a sense of psychological balance in your life. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. Hit the like button too, because that'll help us in our algorithms here. We appreciate that. Also, I know that many times that you would like to have somebody to help you out in a therapeutic kind of way with therapy. I'm so pleased that we are sponsored by the people at BetterHelp.com. We have been for years, and I've received very good feedback from many of you. There's a link below if that's a need that you would want to seek out and take initiative in. In addition, I have my therapeutic courses. I'm sure you're familiar with those by now, and these are extensive, and they're meant to be like an online class. We have multiple videos per course with written documents, guided questions, Ready, Set, Connect about having those good connections, Free to Be about finding yourself despite the controllers, This Is Me about setting boundaries. We have my webinars. We have our podcast. We also have our website that has many articles on there, my books, and I'm hoping that you can avail yourself to all the resources we have. It's good to have a separate self, but it's good to have a separate self without the pathology that the narcissist brings. So I'm hoping you can see what that distinction is, and I hope that you see yourself as someone that says, well, I want to live with dignity, respect, and civility. I want to acknowledge the decency of the other individuals and the connectedness that we have with other individuals. And in doing so, that positions you to be a person of peace. And I so want you to be able to find your way toward peace.